This is the pattern I'm going to use. It's a slight alteration from the Colonial Williamsburg pattern. Originally I just tried to go with the original measurements and then see if it fits, and it turned out too small in places, so I thought maybe I just need to make the entire thing bigger. So I made a different mock-up where I just added almost an inch of space around all the corners, and it turned out so weird and it didn't look good. But I learned from that, so I went back to my original mock-up and just started fiddling around with that again, because I had so much seam allowance I could just pull stuff in, pull stuff out. So what I ended up doing was I added ½ an inch on this line, and I made this a little lower. I don't know if it's because of my very, very square torso, but this part here, the back wasn't wide enough, and this part was way too high up. The entire thing kept creeping up my back. For some reason, I think I'm going to need a waist tape or something. Since I don't have a waistline, not even in my stays, this part here doesn't really sit on the bum, it just creeps up my very square torso, because there's no place where this could stick, you know. So I'm going to need that. And I made the sleeves wider, because apparently my arms are way bigger than the original models, and I made this ankle a lot ankleier, I don't know, like this is not the original measurement, I just want my elbow to be completely covered up here, so I added a little bit of width here. Then I made these a little larger than the original measurement, because I think either I measured wrong, or maybe it just doesn't work out with my proportions, because when you see this, I think this is dubbed the Swallowtail-Jacket, because it's really cute, because this bit here, and oh, it's so adorable. And with all the people it looks really cute, and then I put on the mock-up and this part here was way too small. It just didn't stick out the way it should, it didn't look cute when it was draped the way it should, so yeah, I changed things. Also, this angle here, I shaved a little bit off, because I don't have a lot of bust and there was way too much space under the arm, and I angled this part because my shoulders are weird. So that's all the changes I did in the end. Like, gave it more space in the back. I made the little sticking out hip parts, forget the word, a little bigger, and I widened the sleeves. So, and I really hope this is going to work, because I don't know how much fabric I have left to spare if this doesn't work out, considering all the other projects that I was going for. Wish me luck. Remember, you can only cut once. I cannot get all of those in one shot, no matter what I do, so this is the best I could do. These are all the pieces I'm going to need. Up here are the sleeves and the back parts and the front parts, so technically you only need 3 pieces, and you just double them and make sure that they're like symmetrical. And what I did here, this might not come across really, is there's always one with the right side of the fabric with the flowers up, and there's one where the back side is showing, so that's why that looks so weird. So basically I just made 2 pieces of the fashion fabric and 2 pieces of the lining of every pattern piece that I had, and then I basted them together, and they're going to stay basted together so nothing moves around. I'm going to explain that later. And I'm going to start with the back pieces, which are those 2. I'm going to, as they say in the book, treat the layers as one, which is only partially right, but it's the term that they used. I'm going to start with the long back seam here, and then I'm going to do the side seams which connect to here, and this angle is going to be interesting. Then I'm going to try it on again, just to make sure that everything fits, and maybe then I'll do the sleeves and then the shoulder bits here. I haven't decided yet, so the next part is going to be interesting. Okay, I'm going to start by making a cut here. This is the back part, and by the way, this is the tail part, so these are not going to be attached. I'm going to stop here with the sewing with this seam, and it's just going to go all the way up to the back. But right now I'm going to cut here and leave like about 1 centimeter of seam allowance. That's about size from here to here, so that's always a good measurement. No need to cut this yet, because I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do here. So, and I feel like I should have basted more here and not this close to the markings, but yeah, we'll see if that works out. This pattern is really not helping, you can hardly see the pins. They've got the same color too. So I attached this with needles. It's a bit difficult to explain. There's a drawing in here. Wait, I think that's going to work way better. Wait, that is. This is what I'm doing. The issue is I already kind of attached the other two layers. So here there's like the lining layer in the way of this step right now, but I will just have to work around that. So I kind of just opened this up, and then I took the outer fabric and wrapped it in, and then I attached it with needles here, and I'm going to backstitch along this line now. So this is the finished seam from the outside. You can see here. Looks quite neat. My hand sewing is definitely improving. And this is it from the back side. Here's the back side of the back stitch that I made, and this is the bit of the lining that I didn't include. So now you can see I've already pinned this down here. I'm just wrapping it in and attaching it, and then I will slip stitch this to the other side of the lining, and then it's going to be closed. It's going to be a bit bulky, but that's okay. Okay, so I'm running into a bit of a problem because this is the finished seam. On this side it's already attached, but no, this is where this should like split up into the two swallowtails, and this would be okay on this side. See, here this is already folded in, and on this side it's also folded in, so I could just cut the leftover fabric here, fold those in, and stitch the seams. On this side, however, the seam is just lying open, so I will have to cut this bit and then fold this in, attach it, and then sew this over it. I think I'm going to check with that one website that I'm using as guidance, because apparently everybody has already done one of these. So I will check the blogs and then I'll see what I do. Okay, I'm a bit further ahead. Let me just explain what I did. This is still the back seam. This is where it goes over into the little tail bits in the back. So we have a bit of a difficult spot right here. You see here, this is where the angle is. So I had to, you can't see it because I already wrapped it in, I had to make a little cut here. So I'm going to repeat it on this side. Right here where it's angling, there needs to be a little cut, not quite to the point where you wrap it around, but there needs to be this little cut to ease the tension of the seam allowance. I used to just ignore that when sewing. That was the worst mistake, one of the worst mistakes I've ever made. And yeah, with this little cut it can ease around the bend way more easily. And then what I did was I made another little cut here. You can still barely see it, because this is where I decided the fabric was going to go from facing this way, like the corner of the fabric, it would go from facing this way to facing this way. So I made a little cut here, and then I wrapped everything else in here, and then this is the way it goes all the way down. I'm not quite sure if I should use the same type of back stitches. I think I'm just going to go with a normal running stitch here. It might look weird, but I'm not quite sure yet. So I'm going to do little running stitches here, all the way until up here, and then I'm going to finish this edge, because I will continue sewing this around this until the point where the bend is, and then this part will go over into a normal running stitch too. But I'll show you when I get there. First I will have to make the seam here. This here is one of the side seams, and the trickiest bit, honestly, is this part. Because remember, the side seams, they were sticking out at a right angle on both sides. So you wrap this in, and you try to attach it here, which means this right angle wants to go here, and this right angle wants to go there. And here, this is where there's a pretty big stress point, so be careful when you're trying this and trying to sew it. This is where it gets tricky, and you can see it here. This is where I should have sewn. Here are the markings, and I kind of rounded off the edge. And on the inside, you can see it here. I took the right angle and I cut a little bit so that it opens up. And, whoops, focus please. I tried to sew as close to the cut as I could. Because if this cut is too deep, if it like goes inside the seam, then it's all going to unravel at some point. So this is really tricky. I recommend planning ahead before you sew this bit. This is honestly pretty much the most difficult bit of this jacket. All the rest is hopefully going to be a lot more simple. So the back seam is done and the side seams are done, and you can see here this is kind of tricky. This is possibly the most tricky part, and I'm not quite sure it's supposed to look like that, but we will see that in the end. What I'm going to do now, because I only want to do the shoulder seams when I'm setting in the sleeves, and I haven't done the sleeves yet, so I need to be able to close this, so I'm going to make a cut here. You can see I already based it because I will have to open up this bit again. I will make a cut here so that it has a little ease. Let me just do that. Here. And I'm going to just wrap that in. And I'm going to use it instead of interfacing. I'm not going to do that with the outside fabric because the little flowers would show on the other side, and I'm trying to keep that to a minimum. And then I will get my newly purchased, what's it called? Ale, and I will punch some holes, and I also purchased some linen thread, and I will use that to make some eyelets. I'm really not sure how long this is supposed to be, so I'm not touching that one. Okay, so So you can see this bit eases a little because I cut it there. That is seriously the best trick that I ever picked up. Okay. I got kind of ambitious and I told myself that I would have this finished until Sunday, which is probably not going to work, but doesn't hurt to dream, right? See, I'm already getting sloppy. I just talked about being on a deadline again and already I'm way too sloppy. Oh, I can't reach around the camera like this. This is exhausting. So. Wow. I don't think I've cut anything this badly in a long, long time. Okay, this needs a cut. Seriously, always cut your allowance in the corners. It's the best thing. I only started doing this like, I don't know, a year and a half ago. Just occasionally. And it really improved the work that came out. So. Alright, now I'll have to check if I need to slip stitch this around the corners or if I need to do back stitch. I'm not quite sure. I will have to consult my books on that. Apparently I was wrong. I was supposed to do this stitch for all the edges, which means I will have to open up that one seam that I made in the back. And this stitch is called, where is it? Le point à rabattre sous la main, which means something under the hand. The stitch under the hand. I have no idea what rabattre means. I could Google that. Yes, so this is it. Apparently from the top it looks like a normal running stitch, and then from the back it looks like a slanted hemming stitch. I didn't know what that was supposed to be before. I mean, I knew what it was, but I didn't know it was called that, which is often one of my issues. So you can't really see it now because it's all white on white. This is what the hemming stitch looks like, and you can really not see this. Believe me, there's little stitches here, even if you can't see them. Little running stitches. This is really hard to make out. Okay, so it's really simple. You go in on the fashion fabric side, slightly angled. You come out underneath the lining fabric, and then you go back in, slightly to the left, and slightly angled downwards. You have to catch the lining. And then on this side you have to make sure that it looks even. And then you go in again, slightly under the fabric. Catch a bit of the lining. And come out. Oh! Had too much coffee this morning. This would work so much better if this wasn't white on white. Yeah, but the positive side is no one is going to see how terribly crooked my stitching is. Okay, so I'm going to do that now.